Hey there, Terry here. Just a quick announcement that if you like giving voice to depression, you might also like my new podcast, Recoverable. On it, I will be asking experts the top 10 most searched questions about different addictions and mental health conditions and therapies. Look for Recoverable wherever you get your podcasts. Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, the best place to find mental health and addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
Each week, we profile a guest who shares openly about their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who do struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us, and that no one understands. We understand.
I'm Terry McGuire, the creator and co-host of this podcast. You have my promise that we'll keep it real here. Depression is real, and we're not going to sugarcoat our discussions about it.
Hope is also real, and you'll get a dose of that here too. I'm Carly McCullough, a licensed social worker and educator, and Terry's daughter. We've both experienced depression and also support loved ones struggling with it. We're here to normalize talking about depression and mental health in our communities, as well as our families.
And to share real-world tested strategies that have worked for other people who have walked similar paths. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Carly. So this month we begin the 10th year of Giving Voice to Depression.
Whoa.
Right? This podcast is based on the fact that shared personal stories of lived experience are one of the most powerful tools we have for changing the landscape of mental health. Stories move the conversation from abstract and stigmatized to intimate, human, and relatable.
Personal experiences shared with the intention of comforting, educating, and connecting with others present depression and other mental health challenges as part of the human experience and clearly not as character flaws.
Putting our experiences into words and knowing that they'll be heard also allows us to take back the narrative and author our own stories. Doing so can help us get out of our own heads and transform our pain into a purposeful tool for helping others.
Today's episode is proof of that. A podcast listener, comforted by a recent guest's words, reached out in gratitude. We then reached out to him to ask if he'd be willing to share, and he is. Here now is Alexander giving his voice to depression.
Alexander has been listening to this podcast since he discovered it while searching online for information to help him better understand and manage his anxiety and depression.
I just find that the stories and the people who contribute are so helpful because they kind of speak to the experiences I've had a lot of times, or if they're not exactly the experiences that I've had, I can relate to them, and they kind of normalize some of the things I've been going through and continue to go through. So it's been very, very helpful.
One recent episode in particular resonated with him.
And I was just, because I was in a very low place a few days ago, that the person you had on was really hitting all the things I was feeling.
So Alexander sought out the Giving Voice to Depression Facebook community page, where he left us feedback. So when you describe the conversations you hear in our podcasts, use the word humane, which is one of the large reasons we're having this conversation, because I've never heard that before. And I was like, wow, what does he mean by that?
Yeah, it's, I guess what I was saying about that is that they are kind, and they kind of show the true human element of what people are going through. And I guess as a listener, it just feels very comfortable, and this is cool that I can contribute a bit. I'm a little worried. Don't know if I'm going to give you enough content or the right content or whatever. So yeah, I'll try my best and see what comes out of it, I guess.
Your story is the right content, and you know your story. So there's no right or wrong. Everybody's story is different, and everybody's story matters. That's sort of the premise of the whole podcast. So tell me about you. What role does depression play in your life?
I think it's kind of always been there. From teenage years, I've always been an introverted kind of very empathic person. Feel things very, very deeply. I can remember being a young guy, in grade school, and feeling very emotional about people being treated poorly, and feeling things very deeply. Going through my younger years in my 20s, I was kind of going through university and not really being aware of my mental health, just kind of putting it aside, just kind of going through typical stuff you do in your 20s.
What wasn't typical was the frequency with which Alexander got seriously ill.
Turns out that I have a chronic illness that it's called a primary immune deficiency. So my body doesn't create antibodies that fight off colds. So colds will turn into pneumonias, and I've gone septic, and I've had multiple hospitalizations. And through that process, I found that my mental health is going down through these medical situations. Anyway, my last hospitalization was about 10 years ago.
Fast forward a few years to when his life started really lifing.
I found that my mood is really, really dipping, and I started seeking help for depression through my family doctor, and was told, yeah, you're, chronically depressed, and you're probably going to have to deal with this for the rest of your life. So that was sort of a lot of things colliding to come to the place where I had to actually accept that I had depression and anxiety, where I think I kept trying to push it away and disregard it and just soldier through, as men tend to do.
Alexander says that talking about mental health in his family would have been seen as complaining or whining, so no one did, which is very different than saying there was nothing to talk about.
It turns out that it runs in my family. My father has been dealing with chronic depression. My grandmother on my dad's side probably had some kind of what they used to call manic depression or bipolar issues. And there was a lot of that stuff going on in my family. And so it took a while for me to accept that I was dealing with this stuff. And only in the last couple of years, I've really started to get more comfortable reaching out to support and speaking a little bit more about my issues.
Grateful you are. Did you know that your father and grandmother had mental health issues, or not until you were diagnosed?
I don't remember how I found out about my dad. I remember coming home and asking him, why do you always lie down when you get home from work? And he said, well, it's because it's so I don't think about things.
So it's no surprise that, like many of us, Alexander had symptoms of depression long before he had a diagnosis for it.
I go up and down with that acceptance. When I'm feeling good, I'm like, oh no, I'm fine, and I don't need to take my medication and that sort of thing. And I've had periods where I've gone off medication without telling my doctor, and I've got back on the medication. But there's been periods where I think everything's fine and I'm normal, and then other times I'm fully accepting that I've got this issue. And there was some behavior that was masking my emotional needs and my mental health. I was misusing alcohol, which kind of inflamed things, and that's part of my story as well, as with mental health. And it's only been within the last year that I've really kind of got a handle on that sort of side of things.
Good for you. It's so human when you feel terrible to do anything to feel better or less. And then you find out alcohol's a depressant that you're trying to use to not be depressed, and takes a while. It took me a very long while to figure it all out. That part of it.
It's something I'm working on right now, and my sleep has been better without any alcohol, and it's been. I feel kind of embarrassed talking about it, to be honest, and
But I don't want you to talk about anything you're uncomfortable talking about or ashamed of. But I just want you to know how absolutely common it is, because who wants to feel it? A quick note to both listeners and any future guests. Before including that section, I did get Alexander's okay to use it. We have no intention of shaming or embarrassing anyone on this podcast. What do you wish people understood about depression that would allow them to be more supportive and empathetic,
I guess,
to the people in their lives who have it?
That it can affect anybody, and any walk of life, any kind of situation you're in. You might not know that you're dealing with it for a while, until things kind of come together, and then you see different parts of your life sort of being affected by it, and then you kind of put together that, oh, maybe there's something going on here, but that it's common, and that maybe depression is can be seen on a spectrum, that could be from low to severe, and that if you're feeling low, you could seek out support.
Alexander has been walking that talk. He's involved with men's groups, calls local support lines when he needs to talk. He works with a counselor. And just days before we recorded, he'd been very transparent with his manager about his current mental health struggles, including suicidal ideation. He's also breaking cycles by opening communication channels about mental health at home.
I'm trying to be a cycle breaker. My wife and I have tried to build a foundation of communication with our boys, of always being available to listen to them, and keep mental health conversation open with them. I've done a couple check-ins with my boys, just kind of, how's the mood? How's your mood doing? And that sort of thing, and just kind of keeping the lines of communication open. So that's just something that's been on my mind, about being a cycle breaker, and hopefully we can use our experiences to teach other people that it's okay to talk about these things, and that it's normal to feel ups and downs, and to come to somebody when they need help.
Well, Mom, it's hard for me to hear Alexander's stories on the anniversary of the podcast and not think about other people who are cycle breakers around depression like you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
One thing I really appreciated that Alexander shared is that he's trying to be a cycle breaker.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
Right? And I think that that's a really accurate thing, on social media or blog posts. I see a lot about like being the cycle breaker in your family is. And the truth is that it's a ongoing effort, and there are so many cycles that we need to break. And Alexander is breaking the cycles that feel possible right now. I know that there are some mornings I wake up and I have a good cup of coffee and I've got my friends around me and I feel like I could break every cycle in the world. And then there are days when I don't.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's because my dog decided to bark at 4 o'clock in the morning like she did last night, or just the world or my depression. And so I think for those of us who do live with depression, it's really important to be gentle with ourselves about being cycle breakers, that it's an intention, it's the goal, and we don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah. It's baby steps, the same way getting through a depression is. We just keep taking another step, moving forward, doing what we can do.
And with every episode you've put out, this is almost our 500th.
Yeah, that'll be in March.
That's crazy. Those are all different elements of cycle breaking. Those are different perspectives on a conversation that all need to be heard if we're actually going to break the stigma. It's about dismantling it, and it's a little bite at a time. And I think cycle breaking is too.
Nice. Agreed.
One thing I know that you and I have talked about in the past, but you and Alexander also talked about was, he said, it turns out that it runs in my family.
Yeah.
And I think that that's an experience that so many people have. I do hear it more with first-time and young parents, where they're starting to think about heredity in a different way, about what was passed. And so I had some friends who came back from the holidays and were like, yeah, so my family doesn't talk about that, but we always had Uncle so-and-so who was, or there's lots of stories about grandma who should always. And I think that when we look back at photos, when we share stories, in a lot of families where mental health was not a discussion, where emotions were not discussed, some of that was generational, some of that's cultural, that it is important that we look back and figure out, or just maybe are curious about what might actually run in our families.
Mm-hmm.
I had a doctor who kind of teased me once. She said I was one of the only patients that every time I come in, I tick off different boxes about my family history. And I said, well, I'm learning.
Oh, yeah, that too. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's probably what that was. We never got a diagnosis. They never went to a specialist. But yeah, that's probably what that was. And so, as we have more awareness, it is important to be sharing with our own medical professionals, our own both physical doctors and feeling doctors, as you taught me to call them, but our mental health practitioners too, about what does run in the family. Even if something's not passed hereditarily, sometimes what was passed was a message that we have to keep mental health silent, that we can't talk about it, that cousin that you never saw again, it's because they stopped getting invited to the holidays because they were too stressful for the rest of us. And so those are all learned patterns, nature and nurture. And a lot of us learned a lot of patterns. There are cycles to be broken in the nurture category as well as the nature category.
Truth. Good observations. Thank you.
We really hope that this discussion helps give some language or context to your own depression, or ideas for how to support someone else in your life living with it. We invite you to check out the hundreds of episodes in our archive and to explore both the Resource Hub and treatment options on recovery.com. Depression is too dark a road to walk alone.
We'll be back next week.